Hi, I'm Stacy Yesner from Berkshire Hathaway Koenig Rubloff in Chicago.
Hi, I'm Marla Barch with Cross Country Mortgage.
We're here today to talk to you about who's on your team when you're buying a home. So who do you think should be the important people that are on your team? What do you think, Marla?
Well, first of all, this is really key because for most people, buying a home is your biggest investment and getting a mortgage is your biggest debt. So you really want to make sure that the people who are on your team who are giving you advice are very knowledgeable, they have good integrity, they have your best interest at heart, and they're able to really advocate to get you the best deal for you. So the first person on your team would be the real estate agent. So as a real estate agent, what would you say you bring to the table that's different than other real estate agents that buyers may consider working with?
Well, I personally am an advocate for all of my buyers. I think it's really important to make sure that my buyers know exactly what they're looking for, to make sure I help them find exactly what they're looking for, and to make sure that they get the best deal possible. I also make sure that when I go through a home, I'm looking for any defects in the home and point them out to them because sometimes they don't know what to look for.
Yeah.
So, I'm looking at the ceilings, I'm checking out the floors, just little things that, they're looking at all the cosmetic stuff when I'm looking at, how old the furnace is and the water heater and all that kind of stuff. So I'm also making sure that, hi Jennifer Lund, how are you? I'm also making sure that people, are staying within what they want to afford, not necessarily what they can afford.
Right.
Because I don't want anyone to stretch themselves too thin.
Absolutely.
So, and I also stay in close contact with the mortgage broker to make sure that we have people working closely together. So what about a mortgage broker? What should people look for?
So the next person on your team is the loan officer. And actually that's usually your first step, who you want to talk to first to make sure that you're educated on what you qualify for, what the right purchase price is, like you said, for not just what you qualify for, but your budget. If you're, if you decide you're comfortable with a $2,000 monthly payment and the bank tells you that you qualify up to $3,000, you really want to know what is the right purchase price for your $2,000 budget. So those are the things that a good loan officer will do. They'll review what you qualify for, what is the right purchase price. They'll make sure you're pre-approved in a thorough way where they actually review everything and make sure that you know for certain you're going to get the loan. You don't want to go out looking for a home on a pre-approval or pre-qualification that hasn't been done well, and you think you qualify and then find the home and find out it doesn't work out. So
can you just explain really quickly the difference between pre-approval and pre-qualification?
Sure, absolutely. So pre-qualification is the lowest level. Usually the loan officer just has a conversation with the buyer, maybe pulls the credit, and they look at it and say, yeah, it looks good, I think you can get a loan. But it's not very solid. They haven't done all the detailed, thorough work to make sure they're actually gonna get the loan. So say you find a house, you're under contract, and then the file goes to the underwriter and they find out, for instance, that you have a child support payment, you pay $1,000 a month, and now that affects your debt to income ratio, you're not gonna qualify. Or there's something else they missed. They look through the credit report more thoroughly and find out you had a short sale 2 years ago that they didn't know about. So, so the pre-qualification is not thorough. There's definitely a lot of risk that a lot of things will get missed. The pre-approval is more thorough. So not only do they talk to the buyer to ask those questions, they look at paperwork, look at your pay stubs, your bank statements, your tax returns, look through any public records, make sure that they're not missing anything. And then they run it through an actual computerized underwriting system. So that's definitely way more thorough. Although it is dependent on how good the loan officer is. If the loan officer's thorough, they're gonna catch all those things. The loan officer could also not be thorough and still think they're doing it at the pre-approval level, and there's still risk. So it's, again, making sure with your good team that you're working with a knowledgeable loan officer that you trust, that if they give you a pre-approval letter, you know that means that you're pretty good to go. And there's actually one more level. There's a handful of companies that have now started doing, mine included, full underwriting approval. So not just trusting the loan officer's word that you're approved for the loan, but the actual underwriter looks at the buyer's file before they find a house. So you know for sure that you're actually approved by the underwriter, not just the loan officer. So that is the most solid level for the buyer to be comfortable and have lowest risk, but also for the seller. When you submit your offer to a seller, can you imagine if a seller is comparing two offers, one that has a full underwriting approval and one that's just a pre-qualification? Obviously, you're going to be in a much stronger position.
So as a realtor, I want to make sure that my buyers have that pre-approval before we even start to look at homes. So when we're going to make an offer, we're able to make a solid offer.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes you're in multiple offer situations. So then it's really important that you're pre-approved before you start looking, because that also helps you to determine your purchase power.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the other thing. Sometimes people have unrealistic expectations of what purchase price they think correlates to what monthly payment.
Right.
You know, and they're hoping to pay only $1,500 a month, but they think they want to buy a $500,000 house. And so to make sure all those concepts and thoughts that the buyer has are verified by a professional and in line with actual calculations. So again, you know you're shopping in the right price point, you know you're approved. There's very little risk. By the time you're shopping for a home, there should be very little risk about whether it's going to get done or not. It's just about finding the right home.
Right. So you've found your home, you've been pre-approved. So who's next on your team? You have the attorney and you have the inspector, home inspector.
Yes.
So why do you need an attorney or a home inspector? Well, first of all, the home inspector is very important. They're going to find, or hopefully not find, but they're going to look for, right?
Right.
They're going to look for any defects in the home. So, for example, they're going to check the mechanicals, they're going to check all the windows, all the appliances, the roof, water pressure. How many times have you heard, I've seen the sinks don't drain, right? The water pressure doesn't work, or you have really old mechanicals, hot water heaters, furnaces, or I'm trying to think of some other, a little bit of water, or windows that aren't working properly. Those are things that the inspector looks for, and he or she, I don't want to, be gender specific, right? He or she will provide a report, and then you have your attorney.
Yeah. So one thing about the inspector, I've seen some people hesitant to spend the money on the inspection because, it is an investment, you do have to pay for it, but a good inspector will save you more money than you're spending on the inspection. I mean, if there's something major wrong and you don't know, or even not major, but it's coming up in 3 years that you'll have to replace the hot water heater, you're going to pay more money by not getting that right advice.
Right.
So definitely spending money for good professionals that are very skilled and knowledgeable saves you more money than you're spending.
Right. And typically a home inspection in the scheme of things is not that much money.
Right.
So depending on the size of the house, if it's a condo or a single family home, they range between $300 and $600, give or take.
Yeah.
So, and then you have your real estate attorney.
Yeah, and same thing with the real estate attorney. A good real estate attorney will save you more money than you will pay them. Some people say, oh, I have a friend who's an attorney who's going to do me a favor, but they're really, a litigation attorney or a divorce attorney full-time, and they don't really do real estate full-time, so they're not really up on the new laws. They don't know, they're not as knowledgeable as a full-time real estate attorney. So I definitely recommend a full-time real estate attorney that has a lot of experience and knowledge, and they'll know what to look for. They'll know how to negotiate a better deal for you. For instance, if things do come up in the inspection, they'll negotiate credits for you so to help pay for the hot water heater you'll have to replace or whatever the inspector has found that's going wrong.
They also make sure all the language is correct in the contract. They pull the title to make sure there aren't any liens on the title that will prevent the deal from going through. They, what else are their responsibilities? They work with the seller's attorney to make sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, to make sure that you get to that closing table. And they walk you through all the documents to get you closed.
Yeah. Yeah, and some attorneys that I've seen that are really good go above and beyond some of the normal services. Like one we're seeing right now, 2018, we just saw that Cook County had a reassessment of property values.
Right.
So what does that mean? That the 2019 property taxes are going to be higher than 2018 were.
Right.
And a lot of attorneys are still negotiating tax credits based on the old taxes. So the good attorneys are going in and saying, hey, the assessments went up, the property taxes are going to be higher, and they'll negotiate a higher credit from the seller for their share of property taxes. So there's little things like that that a good attorney will look out for you and negotiate a better deal and save you more money.
My attorney, she actually went to the seller's attorney and asked if they would start the appeal process because they had never done an appeal on their taxes.
Yeah.
So there are definitely things that they will do.
Yes. Yeah.
And then, I'm trying to think.
I would say insurance agent.
Yeah.
Insurance, a lot of people, the main thing they shop for with insurance is who has the lowest premium. And while everyone wants to save money, again, you often get what you pay for, right? So if you pay for the cheapest policy, it might not have all the proper coverages if you ever needed to make a claim. So talking to a good insurance agent, make sure you're getting the right protection, the right amount of protection. I oftentimes see condos well underinsured. People will go with the minimum required, but the minimum required is not nearly enough that if the place really did burn down and you had to rebuild, from the drywall to the flooring, the kitchen cabinets, often it's not enough money. So again, making sure you have the proper protection at the best cost, not just the best cost.
Okay. So, who's on your team? Really important, just to summarize. A realtor that you trust, that's going to advocate for you. A mortgage broker that's going to get you pre-approved and to help you determine what you can spend and what you want to spend. A real estate attorney, one that practices real estate law all the time. A home inspector who's going to help you determine what needs to be taken care of before you close on the house. And an insurance broker who is going to help you get the coverage that you need to make sure that if anything happens, you are covered. Did I leave anyone out?
I would say those are the main ones. The important thing though is, a lot of people will say, oh, I know a realtor because I go to church with someone, or I know a loan officer, my brother's friend is a loan officer. But just because you know someone or have heard of someone does not mean that they are the most knowledgeable or experienced to really protect you, again, with what for most people is their biggest transaction, their biggest investment, their biggest debt. So really, if you're thinking of hiring someone, ask them these questions about, what makes them good, what is their experience, how are they going to help you, so you make sure you're best protected moving into this process.
All right. Well, thank you so much. If you have any questions, feel free to send me a direct message. Stacy Yesner, real estate broker.
Marla Barch, senior loan officer and also renovation loan specialist at Cross Country Mortgage.
Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great afternoon, everyone, and happy holidays.